Hello, Howard. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Mustafa. Excellent, thank you. All
It's
good.
pleasure to have you all the time. Every time we had it, and I end up learning a lot of things from you. And Dharma is one thing, which is
Yeah,
yeah. I see your post every now and then on LinkedIn, and I learn a lot of things from you.
thank you.
Okay, awesome. So our audience already know you. You have been part of our podcast few times. So I think we
Right.
skip the introduction and
Uh,
we directly jump onto our topic, which is unification of data records, corporate and AI governance. When you proposed this topic, I was very surprised that I was about to ask someone that can we talk on this because this is since agentic AI comes in, all these
yes,
things need to be at one place, else it's a failure.
yes,
I think
yes.
that is where you are also coming from, right? So tell us about this
Oh,
one, how you come up
definitely.
with this one. Yeah.
It, it's always depressing when something new comes about, and then the organizations almost want to create a new department, a new level of governance to do the things that we should be doing together, and our focus should be working together. Now, of course, AI and agentic AI starts to introduce more technology, more system development, and things like that. So it's not exactly the same, but so we all dependent on the quality of the work that we do, from records to data to system to evaluation on responses, in terms of LLMs or chatbots and things like that. We got to be paying attention that things aren't going in the wrong direction. And that's basically what governance is. And we all try to do this independently, but AI has now forced us to come together.
Mm.
We just cannot, anything we do, any system, any feature, we need to look at it from a holistic point of view and not just an individual governance area point of view.
You're actually absolutely right. Like last time we were also failing. A lot of things governance was hardly anybody could was implementing governance.
Yeah.
So we were still surviving. I think in AI or agentic AI, if the same kind of ecosystem would be there, we could still survive. But the challenge AI brought in or agentic AI brought in that it can really expose yourself. It can
Mm.
bring up some kind of hallucinations which you never try to do it, but we have those examples, right? Policy things, insurance examples are there. Some agent went and deleted the whole database. You heard about those newses, right? So I think
Yeah.
these challenges has really pushed us. Hey, look into governance. What do you think?
And and I'm not so much worried about hallucination because we can also be saying that this chatbot or this rag or this agent can only refer to our content and not to anything else. Now, of course, hallucination comes from incomplete prompting and things like that. But what's always strikes me is that if we don't have the curated content, being data, records, uh, decision making, insights, then we get into a lot of trouble. We have promises, we make decisions, and then we can be held accountable to it. We have to be able to explain why that decision was made, on what basis, on what data, on what grounds are we making this decision, and it can come back 5, 6, 10 years later. We can be held accountable for these decisions. Now, do we have everything together? Do we have our data that justified it? Do we have our records? Do we have our policies? Do we have everything that we can say this is why we made this thing, and these are the actions we took, this is the humans that we involved? How do we justify all of this? And if we do it individually, I don't think we can succeed on this thing.
You are right. I think you are coming towards which is a topic which I have been discussing with other people. That last time for data we had security, then we have privacy. But the
Mm.
third term, which is transparency, has become more important because
Mm.
we know how to secure it. We know which data is private and which is not. But transparency is something that, hey, what agent do, you should know what it has done and the reasons why it has done. That is
Yeah,
going toward
yeah.
lineage as well, right?
And the other thing that struck me, Mustafa, is that we all talk about quality, but we talk about data quality, we talk about decision quality, we talk about record quality, we talk about all these different qualities, and none of us are putting it together in terms of total quality. So,
Hmm.
if we think of building a product, building a car, building a data product, building an AI product, doesn't matter what it is, we need to look at all of the inputs that are going to be managed. Now, how do we get consistent about creating rubrics that can measure all of these different aspects, or do we work in silos? This content is curated, it's got enough metadata, this data is up to date, or whatever it is. The evaluations and the recommendations from the chatbot or the agent, how do we bring all of this quality together, and how do we vet it both online and offline, that we are not doing the wrong things that can get us into jail? So we've got to rethink that as well. And a lot of times when I talk to new new people coming onto the block about data quality, they say, no, that's not important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's old stuff. Now we're doing it in a new way, and it's like, okay, so all right, okay, now now we're gonna have some fun. So yeah, how do we talk about this thing together and not individually?
Actually, you are absolutely right. And that is one of the reason when I was creating this, my training deck and realized, uh, by the way, it's a very funny thing, right? Because I'm industry for data industry for last 20 plus years. And I worked on 6 to 7 data modeling techniques. So when I started working on the deck for my training, I came to know in total from business end as well as rest of the end-to-end journey, there are 33 type of data modeling techniques. So
Mm,
I
mm,
realize, yes, you can go and pick and choose, but you cannot run away from the data modeling. Same goes
yeah,
with, you have to use something or the other. Otherwise, you do not know what you're doing, what
yeah,
spaghetti you're creating, right? Same goes for data quality, right? Yes,
mm,
you can say that we do not need a traditional data quality, but you need some kind or the other data quality. Else,
yeah.
your ROI, I think I was talking to who? I was talking to John or someone else, right? That they were saying, hey, people are talking that why we need data quality, as you mentioned, right? So I told them, yes, you don't need a data quality. Then you end up doing all quality checks in the memory, right? And your compute power will go very high, right? So if you
Mm.
don't do that in a right place, then you end up paying multiply by X. What do you think?
Now, there, there's there are a few issues to this. One is, of course, we people refer to it as ML drift, but really it's data drift. The structure of the data has changed from when we first trained the model to where we are now. So, I think, and it's been interesting because I've been looking at the Wang Strong uh, framework, dimension framework, and it's amazing how you can look at certain aspects with an AI view, things like believability, and it's a case of, is is the data believable? Is the data reasonable? Is the recommendations trustable? In all of these different types of things. And we've learned how important it is to go away from emotional views of what is good quality to being able to define metrics, being able to define ways of measuring it, so that we can pick up that things have changed. And to me, that's the important thing. It's a case of, how do we all speak the same language? Let's go back to the basics. Let's go back to the way in which Stuart Deming defined total quality. And can we all agree on the fact that we are creating products, we are creating elements, and we need to hold ourselves measurable and accountable to what's going on. And it's been interesting. I don't know if you've noticed, but now people are talking about a new type of development approach, which they call evaluation driven development. So a new thing. So how do we define the metrics? How do we evaluate how well we are doing? And how do we also allow those evaluations to be dependent on what you're trying to achieve? So is this LLM giving me enough creative content? So if I'm marketing, it's all about being creative. Okay, so the way in which we measure the quality is different against for all the different agents and the different implementations under different contexts. So, but the techniques are the same. The way in which we approach it, the way in which we measure it has to be automated. It has to be defined so we can pick up that we're going wrong and things are happening badly.
It is the same example of a car, right? The more sophisticated car you have, the less it will damage. But the problem is the moment it will damage, right? Like after 5 years, and you are on a motorway
Yeah,
somewhere, 1,000 kilometers, right in the middle of the city.
that's
You
right.
just need to clean your plug. But as it was
Yeah,
such a good, sophisticated car, it never spoiled before. But the moment it did, and if you do not know the
yeah,
basics, you are
yeah,
totally
yeah,
stuck. I think agentic
yeah.
AI is going into that direction. Yes, agents will do all those stuff under the carpet, but you need to know something goes wrong, right? When you
That's
say
right.
evaluated base, it is agentic AI where the whole agents will evaluate and all those things and go back, restart the process. But the moment it is stuck,
Yeah,
who's going to do what, right? So
yeah,
the question again
yeah,
comes back, as you mentioned, that we have to go one step back. We need to understand if you're really jumping onto an agentic AI journey, you can also comment on it. I think maybe I am biased because I am a data guy. I feel we need more data guy as more as big as compared to past, because now agentic AI is going to do those stuffs only who has walked the walk, who has already done this will know. What do you think about that? Because I'm
you know, I got a lovely story for you. I had some good friends that decided to retire. And of course, in South Africa, when people retire, it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a Land Rover and travel across Africa, the Cape to Cairo or those type of things. And that's what they did. And they bought a fancy Land Rover, not the Series One and the
yeah.
old thing. They bought a really fancy one. Well, it broke down in Tanzania, and Mustafa, they couldn't get it going again. They had all sorts of stuff. In the end, they put it on a ship and sent it back to South Africa, and that was the end of their retirement plan. So this impact is big, as what you're saying in this situation. So the reality is big, but what I'm also finding is that, oh, all of a sudden, now AI wants their own stewards, and data wants their own stewards, and records management wants their own stewards, and corporate governance, risk management want their own stewards. So the business now has to have these specialized stewards that are all defined as business SMEs, but we want them different. We
Hmm.
want to have this type of a steward and that type of steward, and the business can't keep on allocating these people to the stewardship program that we have to have, and we can't be isolated. So what stops a SME from being both a data steward, an AI steward, and a record steward, records manager? Why do we need, and why do we keep demanding these specialized stewards when there's only one SME or two SMEs in the game? They have to be able to deal with all of this. Now, is it possible that they can't understand what the model's doing? Well, they have to give the definition on how to make these decisions, these business decisions. They have to measure the value, and they have to be able to explain the decisions. Who else can do it other than the SME?
You're right. Actually, a couple of weeks back, I had a session with this gentleman, Eric Baroda from Canada. He is running his own company. and which he is doing agentic AI. So
Mm.
actually, he really changed my perspective looking towards agentic AI, because I was also onto the same angle where I thought that agents will take over the roles. And I was always confused, because when you take over a role, the role has a JD, and on a JD there are many tasks. First, there are
Mm.
many tasks a human need to do as a role, and which are obvious, and many tasks which are very hidden, invisible.
Yeah.
When you do it, and then he told me that every agent will not be a role, it will be a task base.
Mm. Mm.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that RPA tool, we
Yes.
create RPA step by step. I think
Mm.
that is how we need to treat
It's
agent.
like an if then else. Oh, it's
Yes,
like
yes. So every task need to have agent, and we need to consider we have a stupid fellow with us, and this agent is stupid. That first
yeah.
scenario we have to keep it. If we consider it as stupid, then we will have another next layer semi-stupid, next layer intelligent. Then there'll be many layers of agents,
Mm. Mm.
and then it'll work. I think that really makes sense to me, because I was really lost that as an essay I do hundreds of things, out of which 30% is only written, 70% is never written, right?
Mm.
So,
Mm.
how an agent, LLM, we already know how it is struggling, right? How we expect LLM to do it. But this guy says, no, it's not like that. Small, there will be millions of agents and billions of
Yeah.
agents, he's saying. So, do you
Yeah.
think this also makes sense? It fascinated me.
Yeah. It's been interesting, Mustafa. I've been putting together um, a learning agent to help people with CDMP. Okay. And one of the things we always recognize is that not everybody wants to attend a course, and not everybody wants to go from the start of the DMBOK to the end of the DMBOK to be able to achieve their certification. And one of the things I've been working with is a corporate solution where we we create agents to, for example, a DII agent or a metadata agent or a data governance or a data quality agent. Now, I started with that and I realized, oh my goodness, there's a whole lot of common tasks. For example, how do I evaluate where the person is? And to evaluate where the person is, I need to take them through a set of questions.
Hmm.
And I need to be able to say, based on your answers to these questions, then this is what you are, and this is where you are, and this is what you need to know. So all of this was consistent across all of the different high level agents. So once you start, there's so many little agents running around
Yeah.
having to do the same thing across everybody.
Hmm.
so so that's been fascinating to actually start to build these agents yourself and realize how how important it is to keep that agent task small and to be able to be used at any point in time. So at any point in time, we may say, oh, right, maybe you should do a quick assessment, or maybe we need to evaluate where you are, or how do I explain this concept a little bit simpler and a little bit smaller for you? What is the right thing that meets your requirements and not what is the generic approach to everybody? So as we break it down, as we design that conversational flow, we then have to be careful of trying to be too prescriptive on the conversation because that's if then else, and then rather allow an agent to say, "This is what I do, and when you need me, call me," and
Hmm.
then I can do my task. But it can't be big. It's got to be almost at a conversational level. This is what I
Granular
need.
level,
This is
the
what.
most
Yeah.
granular level you can go. First, you have to find out those granularity and
Yes.
start building agents from there. You,
But to have the overall picture. So unfortunately, you've got this overall picture. Okay, I want to help people achieve a data integration interoperability certificate on CDMP. Fantastic. Okay, but what does that take? And
yeah,
it's understanding all of those little things that need to come together And of course, you have to be constantly writing the data away
Mm.
so that we can track, well, where's this person getting? Are we going forward? Are we going backwards? How are we progressing? And then it's got to go to HR, it's got to go to managers. Now there's data privacy issues and records and stuff like that. And it just gets more and more exciting. But
I think that is where LLM, in my point of view, will be really helpful because if
yes,
you say LLM, hey, I'm going to design a interoperability chapter for whatever,
yes,
can you design a questionnaire for me to evaluate someone? And because of the hallucination, hallucination become blessing actually, because hallucination will give you n number of questions to evaluate someone,
yeah,
right? And that is, I think that is how I feel you should be using LLM to explore things, to create something rather than to decide something.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
decisions, it is not good because decision making hallucination is a problem. But in
Mm.
creativity to find new things, hallucination is a blessing actually. What do you think?
Yes, yes. And it's interesting. I don't know if I can share my screen with you.
Can so
And this is
yeah, now you can share.
okay. So this is where I started almost like 2 months ago. I started at this level, and it's like that no code approach, right? Where Copilot just says, I'm happy to create an agent for you. There it is, create an agent. And I created a DII agent, a RMD, reference and master, data governance, data quality. And then I stumbled on writing business definitions that I'm sure you'd find interesting in terms of taking Mark Atkins and Terry Smith's approach and driving that down to the level of detail. So what is the classification of this term? What is the purpose? What are the characteristics? What are the business rules and things like that? And so really nice to almost be able to help us build these agents, but I quickly ran out of guidance where I couldn't guide the discussion far enough. And then I had to go to Copilot Studio and start building those conversation flows for every single agent that I need to build. And that then struck me in terms of saying, wow, I could actually do a lot of this data governance for data stewards and help them understand policies and procedures and conversations that we can then enable our stewards to be able to do the work they need to do, but not have all of the experience and knowledge that we need them to do. For example, understand the quality, define a data quality expectation, or things like that. We can hide so much of this away in the background and not force them to come and talk to us as data quality people or data engineers or AI people or modern data scientists. We don't. We can guide these people by using these agents and not have them dependent on us. So all of a sudden, our knowledge management is really powerful. Now, unfortunately, what it does to, for example, with the DMBOK, it actually moves the DMBOK behind a DII agent. Okay, so now I'm teaching you DII, but they don't know that the DMBOK is behind it.
Mm.
They don't know that writing business definitions that Terry and Mark do. They're not aware of it, but that's the core content that gives them direction and gives them a technique of doing things. So that's also become an interesting thing now that I'm involved in the DMBOK version 3 editorial board. It's a case of, well, how do we provide the core content and how do we still remain relevant? Are people Yes, of course, some people still want to read the book, but do we need to be reading all of this stuff anymore?
Actually, you're absolutely right, right? That the book is something which is becoming question mark. And when we talk about generic books, that is becoming very question mark because most of the people think we can do Google now, not now, no more Google now, chat eye.
Yeah, yeah,
We can do a chat eye and we can ask any kind of question and it can respond to us. So
yeah,
when I was starting to create my training course, I thought about it that will people take my training, because it's a question mark, because anybody can do chat GPT or Gemini, then
mm,
why
mm.
should they look into my training? Then I gave it a thought. Then I realized no, people will go as this what is his name, Neil Bryan, uh, is a physician. He mentioned that internet is going to crash very soon and brand net is going to come in, which means that people will stop trusting chats or Google, because there are so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
scam over there, so much fake data over there, and we know how chat eyes
Mm,
work.
mm.
It will tell you whatever you want to know. So
Yeah.
training will become relevant until unless they are a complete package and they come from a known person.
Mm,
Because
mm.
today anybody
A
can
credible source. Yeah.
credible source, so brand net. So he called it a brand net, which I really liked it. Yes, tomorrow
Mm.
if I need to learn someone, I will go only open Howard training. I will not open XYZ, because you won't
Yeah.
go onto Coursera, you go onto Udemy, hundreds of trainings are there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All those will become irrelevant. I think brand net will come. So you're right that books will become little bit less. Actually, today someone was asking me, "Are you writing next book?" I said, "No, I've stopped writing because I
Oh,
felt
okay.
written five, right?" So when I wrote five, people started saying, "Why the hell you're writing?" Then I realized, yeah, yeah. Until unless I become a name like Howard or a Bill Inmon or someone like Chris, then I should be spending on it. So then I realized, okay, I go back to my original book, which is Datapedia, and start enriching that Datapedia. So it become a one
Mm.
good source, right?
Yeah,
Everything one place. Because if you go and search what is, let's say, taxonomy and
yeah,
ontology, people still cannot differentiate ontology and taxonomy,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Search online, it is very difficult.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have worked on it, so I defined in such a way that it makes sense, at least to me, right? So these things will come back, but I think, yeah, books. I personally think books are a little bit going away until unless
Yeah,
our
yes, it's tricky. I mean, it's a case of you, you know, we work with Steve Hoberman in terms of every single time someone publishes a book like Data Quality ROI
Hmm,
uh, or whatever he publishes, we bring the author on for a webinar and they tell us about the book and they tell us what's going on there. Now we started to build a book club in terms of these are all the books that people are talking about, and it's amazing how that develops a life of their own, almost the comments about the book rather than the book itself.
yeah,
Um, and so it's the community and their engagement with the book that people enjoy reading and listening to, which is quite something. And you realize, and it's, I mean, those books will always be important. They set an approach, they define a technique, they help us understand certain things. But it's a case of, is it always presented? Do we always buy it as a PDF or whatever it is? And then we buy the PDF and we ask Copilot to summarize the book for us because we just don't have time to do that anymore. So it's
I
a
think
tricky,
that old, we as we call it, Stone Age kind of thing is going to come back. I
right.
personally believe Stone Age style with new technology. When I say Stone Age style means people will go to a relevant people, credible sources
Ah,
to
okay.
learn via technology. See,
Right.
that old teaching, we still remember that who were our teacher, right? 30 years
Yeah.
back. But our
Yeah.
kids doesn't know, because our
Mm.
kids are more focused on technology. They
Yeah.
think
Yeah. You're right.
whatever their teacher is teaching, they can teach on online. But the thing is,
Yes.
next era will be where, yeah, credibility will become very important, because you do not
Mm.
know what you are learning. So when I say Stone Age, we will go to the old style of learning, but using technology. That's what I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah. And I mean, it's always been initially when we heard about LLMs and Gen AI, and everyone was really concerned about, well, where are we now? So what does our career look like? And the more you go into it, the more you realize that that human in the loop will stay there forever.
Forever.
And we need to just reposition ourselves. Well, where are we in the loop? What
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is the context that we're working on, and just focus on being the best at that part and working together, uh, you know, together, or what's the right? I'm not finding the right word at the moment, but it was augmented AI, sort of where we bring in the human part to it as well, where we can guide people with stories and not just with content. What is the story behind this? What is the understanding? What are the principles? Sometimes that discerning you don't always get.
Yeah, you are right, right? That if I take this conversation to the next level, actually, I believe that learnings and upgrading yourself, I think, will come back because currently what was happening, because we always say data culture change, company culture change, do bring the
Yeah.
data culture. The challenge in data culture is people are so busy into their day-to-day job in BAU
Mm,
that these poor people are unable to cope up into the technology world. They don't have a
mm,
time to think, right? So I think
mm.
now once agents comes in, their repetitive work will squeeze down. They
Yeah.
like it or they don't like it. They have to give their boring jobs, repetitive jobs to the agent. Start with a small
Yeah.
agent.
Yeah.
My suggestion always to everyone is start manual agents. Don't automate the whole cycle of agentic AI. Bring
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
small agents means read emails where my name is being asked or I have been asked to respond. Read my emails,
Mm,
that's it. And just tell me those emails. So I've already
yeah.
squeezed 500 emails to 100 emails, right?
Mm, mm,
Get small manual agents, give it to your team.
yeah.
Get their time out of their daily jobs. Now they are thinking. Now, when they are thinking, they will they will go and do the trainings. Hey, I'm asking these agents to do this for me. How to come up with a new workflow or new way of doing it, or how many ways I can ask this agent to do it. So that is where
Right.
training comes. I think
Yeah.
people will
Mm,
start going towards strategic way, and if we don't end up using agentic AI same way we expected generative AI to do it, if we go into a
yeah.
same cycle, I think Gartner already predicted by 2027, 40% of agentic AI project will be failed. They are already saying
Right.
that because
Yeah.
they
Yeah. Yeah.
know human nature, right?
No, no. And it's an interesting point you bring up. We had a webinar with Lucid AI on Tuesday, and it was an interesting concept that he brought up where he's talking about changing the way we think with AI,
Hmm.
not so much changing how we work, but the way we think with AI. And what was interesting is that he proposed that you spend 50% of the time preparing for your engagement with the research that you wanted to do, then 20% of the time doing the research, and then 30% of the time reviewing the response. Okay. So, of course, it's really important. You don't just think about it, get the AI to do it, and then accept it and send it to your fellow workers. Then you're going to get into trouble. So we have to budget the time to review and improve what the response was. Now, interestingly enough, that comes to a 80% of the time spent thinking, 20% of the time spent doing. Now, I don't know if you remember, but that was almost the criteria when we first started developing a waterfall and iterative approach. Grady Booch spoke about 80% of the time should be thinking, and that would be requirements, data modeling, things like that, and 20% of the time doing. Now, what's been interested now is the case of then we went to agile, and then it was about trying to do as much and think less.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's sort of changed around again, which I find very interesting in terms of saying, well, I still need to spend 80%. Now, the nice thing about that is that the agents are doing it so quickly that we can still achieve what we are trying to achieve, but spending more time thinking.
Yeah.
So now it's taking minutes to generate a paper, but if you don't guide it properly and you don't structure it properly, well, the paper is going to be rubbish. And then you'll spend more time fixing it than you will spend, packaging it and sending the thing out. Um, and he made a nice comment to say, isn't it like that? We can spend 2, 3, 4 days preparing a presentation and we send it to someone, and within an hour they come back saying, no, 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 this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So 4 days, 2 hours. And we need to be doing now less time getting it right, get it out, and then we become the auditors of our message. We review what someone else has done on our behalf. So we change our role over to giving the right challenge, the right problem, then getting them the agent to do, then we review and learn in that process. So that's also, I think that's a very helpful way of rethinking our time spent with these tools, and how do we think with these tools, and how do we govern with these tools? How do we create knowledge management policies and procedures? Man, we don't need to write big long papers that everybody has to spend 2 weeks reading and signing off. We can't do it like that anymore. It needs to be appropriate. This is what you're going to do. This is what we want. This is the policy. And if you don't do it, we're going to catch you, or someone's going to catch you. An agent will catch you from doing the wrong thing.
You're absolutely right, right? We have seen is this numerous time that let's take about example of a project manager. When project manager is sharing the status with a CTO or with a CFO or with the head of department or with the MD and CEO, actually everybody thinks differently.
Yeah.
All these roles have a different mindset.
Yes.
CTO will
Yes.
always think how the technology implemented.
Mm.
CFO will always think how they are saving the cost. CEO
Yeah.
will always think how they're generating more revenue,
Value.
more value.
Value for the business.
Right?
No.
So this poor PM, because I have been a PM as well, he
Yeah.
always stuck, hey, my deck was really appreciated by CFO, but when I go to CEO, this
Yeah.
guy totally scrapped it because he doesn't see the
Mm.
value out of it, right? So I think
Yeah.
agent can be really helpful in these domains as well,
Oh, definitely.
right?
And just even an LLM where we can say, please take the role as a CEO and review my content, or play the role of a CFO, play the role, and you can go through these different roles and adjudicate the work that you've been doing. And I think that's a helpful perspective. We can see how much that can contribute and get us to think differently. So how do we think? How do we think now with AI? Um, and I think the people that are really challenged the most are going to be the universities and the schools and education. We can't say to you're not allowed to use AI because it's cheating. Well, that ship has sailed a long time ago. If you don't teach them how to use it, well, it's not relevant. And then the other aspect, and this is a lecturer said to me, Howard, many years back, no one argued with us because they believed that we were the boss. We were the person who knew it all. Now they're busy questioning you whilst you're busy lecturing. They're asking ChatGPT and what about this and what about that. So you're no longer the expert because you could find someone else with another way of thinking that's going to contradict what you're saying. So how do we work with this? How do we help people work faster and better and think better?
Actually, you are right, right? That last time what was happening that whenever a vendor or SI go to our product based company go to a customer, so whatever this dude tells to the customer, customer blindly accept because they
Yeah.
don't discuss it. Now no more. Now when
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
a meeting, they already prepared themselves. They went before the meeting, they talked to the chat eye, and they already know which technologies are there in the market, what
Yeah.
is right and wrong. And when you go into, you cannot bluff anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that actually brings to that golden cycle, right? I also want to bring it in, and I wanted to take your input on it as well. In golden cycle, we know that there is a why, there is a how, and there is a what. Why is a
Yeah.
business requirement, how is an architecture solutioning, blah blah blah, and what is a technology, right? My perspective is why will be very much supported by GenAI because why is questions about like how I can generate value, what are the business different ways of use cases. GenAI really can help. When we talk about what technologies, I think that is where agentic AI will come in and it will help us to do automate all the pipelines and testing. You end up creating a use case, user story very easily. Generative AI can create a test case for you, test plan, everything can be done. This middle portion, which is how, that is all, that is where I believe that how will become the human in loop because there are n number of ways a solution can be implemented because human is talking to a human, right? When you are defining a why always come from business. Business
Mm.
can take help from generative AI. Say, hey, I want to solve this problem, tell me what are all the ways I can solve the problem, right? So GenAI can give it all the user stories and use cases, right? Now this user stories and use cases being passed to a, let's say, solution architect or a BA who is defining the how. Now when BA or solution architect will ask questions, that is where in why that human will come into picture because this guy will be creating a solution and Gen AI cannot do 100% with you. We all know that there will always be gap. So when this guy will talk, this human in loop will talk, solution can be created n number of ways. You have a car can be for how many people? It is for groceries, it is for land,
Mm.
it
Mm.
is go for mountains, it is for long drive. You need a sporty car, you need economic. So there can be n number of questions. I feel that in this how human in loop will be heavily involved because that is where you end up saying, okay, let's create a car. When you say create a car, robots or generative AI can create, but what to create, this human loop need to come into it. What do you think about this? My this is my thinking
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. And um, I'm already slightly challenged with the way in which you've presented it because certainly the way I tend to see it is the why, and I agree with you, the why comes from the business. Now, I think that's the difficult part because it's about the motivation, the business motivation, the business strategy in terms of differentiation, being different, in terms of how do we provide value to our customer or our citizen in a way that helps them with what they want to do. So that why uh, fully that comes from the business, and I agree with you. But then I tend to go the why and the what in terms of what should we do, not how we're going to do it. And so I tend to see why, what is it that we need to do. This is almost from a policy point of view. If we think from a governance, these are the things that we need to do. Okay, not how we're going to do that because the how gets into the detail. Do I plus one, minus two? Do
Sorry, sorry,
I?
sorry. Just to stop it here, right? Because there's a confusion as well that my how is your what. Remember that.
Right. Okay. Okay.
My how is
That's
your
that's
what.
what I
I just
thought.
wanted to clear
Okay.
that
Okay.
because there are
Fantastic.
two things where why, how, and what, but how and what
Yes.
flips. People
Right.
think.
Right. 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 Okay. Now, I got into a really interesting discussion with when I went to EDW and I presented a framework mapping. I don't know if you've seen that, but I mapped all the different frameworks and the body of knowledges and the maturity assessment and the regulations, the ISO and the standards and the industry bodies. And I presented all of this stuff. And one of the comments that came back to me was a case of a lot of the times the authors are, so basically I thought, okay, this what we get from the body of knowledges is what we need to do. So if we talk about the DMBOK, it's a case of, if I look at data governance, I need to be able to define a data strategy. I need to set up the operating model. I need to create assurance. These are the what statements. And then I said, oh, the how would be done by Informatic and Calibra. And someone came back to me and challenged me to say, I don't think that's 100% correct, because you do get the authors that give you almost the level between the what and the how, in terms of, this is like the Jeanette McGilray on the 10 steps to achieve data quality, or John Lagley on practical data stewardship, or Bob Siner. They don't just talk to you about the what. They give you the next level of how, but still technology independent. Okay, so this is a funny line between the what and the how, is this level in between. But I do agree with you. What we need to do to achieve the business outcomes, that's where we can specialize. That's where we can add tremendous value, on recognizing, okay, I understand the business requirements. I understand that and I understand some of the technology side, but how do we bring these worlds together without getting down too low a level, where you can just say, do A, do B, do C, do E, done. Thank you very much. And we can automate that level of how. But it's that, how do we piece it together? How do we ensure that we get success? And to an extent, that's what this implementation framework is how do I sequence my work, or what do I do to achieve a successful deliverable, irrespective of the technology, irrespective of the way in which we do stuff, the approach. We shouldn't need to worry about that level of detail. I mean, it's a little bit like going to an agent and say, please generate me this code to do this, this, and this. That sort of vibe programming, where you don't really need to be a programmer, you just need to know what you need to do. And it comes up with a code. There you are.
Yeah,
And then
we
you're
just have a time check of 8 minutes. I'm sure you will have other stuff to do it. So, but I want to stay here to close this thing, right? You're right that your house. So I'll change my formula. I'll say why, what, and how. It
yes,
I
yes,
was flipping it because my side
okay,
it is
no
flipped.
problem.
So we say what
Oh,
is something you design and how it is implementation, right?
correct,
But
correct.
in reality, uh, in agentic AI, we are saying that this how will be hidden from us. Agents will
Yes,
do it. But I think
yeah,
how about looking into this angle that big enterprises we also need to know, because sometimes solutioning is kind of a logical modeling, right? Logical physical modeling sometimes, not physics, sometimes 100% physical modeling is dependent on the logical modeling, right?
yeah,
And sometimes logical modeling is also dependent on the physical modeling, because if you have an oracle down there, or if you have a Teradata down there, or if you have an object storage, sometimes you have to change logical modeling as well. So because
mm,
when we say physical, depend on the technology, right? Like if you have Azure, right, you will have a different kind of solution. But if you have AWS, you have a different kind of solution. Some people
mm,
can say
mm,
both are cloud. Your solution should be same, correct. What about if it is on-prem? What about it is Hadoop? Then your solution changes, right? So those
mm.
things are, we also need human in the loop to understand all these things and design and tell agents, hey, go and design the how in this manner. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's, if we just go back to history, if we look at the difference between an architect and a technical designer, the architect is very much at an enterprise level, and they're all about the business solution, or sort of the business motivation and the business solution. So they deal with the why and the what in terms of that situation. So our logical model for them is what information, what data what do we require to deliver the business solution. But then it needs to be implemented. And then you'll have a logical model, but now it's for the implementation, it's for the solution, it's not for the generic. It has to be on AWS. This is the logical physical model for AWS. So I think it's the same as the difference between an architect and a data modeler. The data modeler will be doing a logical model for the actual solution and for the concrete implementation, not the abstract, which is what the architect is working on. So there's this double usage of a logical model in terms of at one level it's a business solution, at the next level it's a implementation solution that we need to work on.
Yeah, because solutions
So
got a lot of things into it, right? Solution, normally people think that data architecture is only the solution. It's not. Under solutioning, there is data architecture, there is application architecture, and there is a
yes,
technology architecture.
technology, yeah,
There are
yeah,
three kind of architecture which is supported by business architecture, right? And
correct, correct.
solutioning learns from business and create data application and
Mm,
technology.
mm.
So all these things come into picture. I think we are great, and we are already there. I think 3 4 minutes. Let's go towards closing. I think it was a great session, Howard, as always. As we
Thank
were
you.
discussing that, let me share my training deck with you as well. Maybe the first copy. Just help me to have a quick. Don't spend more than
Sure.
15 minutes on it. Just have a look if I'm in the right direction, and let's
Okay.
create something which can maybe become a prerequisite for Dharma. I don't know. Who knows?
Well, they actually on the version 3 editorial board, and I did want to share this with you, is that they are really reconsidering the the glossary. The glossary now, part of my comments have been, I think we need to upgrade from the term glossary to ontology and taxonomy, where the words have the relationships between them, not just the actual word and the definition. So how does this word relate to another word? Um, so it's understanding that polysemy approach, right? So I mean, it was interesting. I don't. Polysemy means it's like polyglot. Polyglot is in a language, but polysemy means we have multiple meanings for the same word. And
Yeah,
the English language, almost 45% of every word in the English language has a duplicate, a different meaning. So, these are some of the challenges we need to get in, and it starts off with the definitions. It starts off with a glossary,
actually, I think this
and
is the same suggestion you gave me that I should create on my I am Datapedia. I should convert into taxonomies or ontologies.
yes,
You
definitely,
told me like 2 3 years back. I think now since COVID, this generative AI is here. I think I
yeah.
should start pouring my IAM Datapedia into LLM and ask it to create a taxonomy or ontology for me.
And a knowledge graph, a knowledge graph is what can really help you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Thank you, Howard. Again, pleasure and have a safe journey. I think tomorrow you are flying over to
Yes,
Saudi.
I fly to Saudi tomorrow. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, say my hi to the king.
I'll do that. Salam alaikum.
Take care. Walaikum salam. Okay, Howard, thank you so much.
Thank you very
Thank you. Take
much,
care.
Mr.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.